Ask any lady and she'll tell you that however colourful her wardrobe, the one thing she wouldn't be without is a little black number. And there's one thing I wouldn't be without in my garden now, and that's this little black number, a brand new elderberry called Sambucus nigra Black Beauty. There have been dark-leaved elderberries before, but never of quite such a good colour as this, nor with flowers which are not creamy white, but pale pink. They also have a delicate fragrance, and they produce elderberries for your wine. It'll grow about a foot a year, and you can prune it hard so it fits into the tiniest garden. I reckon it's a belter. Pastels are passé, and if you want to be hip, you've got to be hot. That's why in this bed, which until a couple of weeks ago was all tulips and wallflowers, I've gone bananas and other tropical summer bedding. The banana is basdew, which you can get through the winter. If you mulch it in milder areas, new shoots will emerge the following spring. I've got bright-flowered semperflorens begonias with their leaves of wine red. And those brilliantly marked New Guinea hybrid impatiens, yellow-flowered euryops, and orange-flowered lantana. All the colours here are hot, and there's one plant that is the staple fare of tropical summer bedding, and that is the Indian shot or canna. I've had these growing in pots for about a year now, and they're so greedy they get hungry and tired and need tapping out and potting on or planting out. Well, with this one, I'm going to do both, simply by dividing it into two. Knock it out of its pot, and you can see just how root-bound it's got. And it's simply a matter of laying it down and cutting it in half, making sure that you get a good section of root with each plant. Just keep hacking away and you'll eventually get through the thinner roots to the thicker rootstock. And there's no more you need to do than that. 2 for the price of 1. I always use a clean flower pot, crocks in the bottom to stop the drainage hole getting blocked, and then this is soilless compost, which cannas seem to like, and you can just ease some of the compost, the old stuff, off the bottom of the root ball, and the green liverwort and moss off the top. It's no good to anybody. Then you can pop that in there and feed around it with new compost. You can almost hear it saying, thank goodness for that. Got rid of that other bloke who was in this pot and grown my own now. And that pot can be stood outside, or it can go in a cool greenhouse or a cold frame. It'll perform quite well this summer. And the other chap should perform well in my tropical bed. The green crust can come off him too. Get that out of the way. And when I'm planting him, I'm working in some compost around the roots just to make it more amenable to his growth. Firm it around there, then water it in. And then in front of him, 2 gazanias of a new variety called Daybreak. And the flowers here are orange-yellow, scented with a red stripe. Now if that ain't hot, I don't know what is.
At the heart of London's 5,000 acres of green space is the Royal Park's jewel in the crown, Regent's Park. Originally the home of the Royal Botanic Society, it was the location for many magnificent flower shows in Victorian times. And now, for the first time in over 60 years, that tradition has been revived. But with so many other events happening at this, the busiest time in the horticultural calendar, can the creators of gardens and the nurseries really deliver the goods? Well, Joe Swift and I snuck into Regent's Park Flower Show early to find out. So Jenny, why another flower show?
We've been asked to look at events as a means of drawing more people into the parks and raising some extra income. And as Regent's Park has had flower shows in the past, it's an area we have expertise in and is relevant to us, we thought we'd try it. And we feel there's probably a new audience out there that would like to come.
What sort of style of show you were after?
We want a nice, very much a horticultural feel to it, as something that feels relaxed, where flowers and natural things are the main emphasis. And because the parks we look after are large parks in the centre of the city, they also have a big importance for wildlife. So we felt that this time for the first show we ought to have a sort of emphasis on their role as wildlife reservoirs.
The wild side of town is packed full of brilliant ideas for attracting wildlife into even the smallest and most urban backyard. If you want butterflies in your garden, for example, then plant beautiful nectar-rich plants in a raised bed or even in a window box. To attract birds into your garden, put up bird boxes, different types for different species. These, for example, are for swifts and house martins. And to keep beneficial insects like lacewings in your garden, give them somewhere to hibernate through the winter. Water is a magnet for wildlife, and if you don't have room for a whole tank full in your garden, you must be able to squeeze in a half barrel. You also want to attract hedgehogs because they are the best slug and snail control there is. So offer them shelter for the winter, either in a bijou des res like this one. Well, this is London, darling. Although, frankly, they'd be just as happy with a pile of old rotting logs.
Environmental garden design can have a bad image, but let me change your mind. The young team at the Kew Gardener Company have used an eclectic mix of materials and plants in their environmentally friendly garden. It's an innovative combination of design and practicality based on an issue everybody is concerned about these days.
This was a design that was intended to be quite strong, quite in your face, but at the same time to demonstrate the number and different variety of materials that are available to use in garden design, which at the moment haven't really been looked at in detail.
All the landscape materials are reclaimed. How did you source them?
Some of them were very easy to source. We just went through the yellow pages. Others were quite difficult, such as the industrial cogs that we've used, and we had to track down somebody that was dismantling a crane, and they've actually loaned us the pieces for that. But I understand they're a lot easier to get smaller cogs, which would be more practical in a smaller garden. The glass is quite readily available now through 3 or 4 distributors, and that's just basically your broken wine bottles and crushed beer bottles that have been put through a sand washing machine so they're no longer sharp. The rope, which is all hemp rope, which is very nice to walk on, came from mostly the opera houses and the theatre houses of London through another rigging agency. The wooden decking came from the seafronts of Brighton and Southampton, the groins and sea defence wood. And the mosaic tiles from just broken tiles from a local tile distributor. So the sort of main key hard surfaces within the garden were quite easy to trace.
I really like it. They've not been afraid to experiment, mixing olive trees and peppers, cycads with delphiniums. The whole space doesn't feel overplanned, and to me, that's what makes it real. Outside in the plant mall, you can't fail to be drawn to the Pioneer plant stand. First, it'll draw you in visually, and then, when you get closer, each plant will have something to excite your senses. Ooh.
Zaluzanskaya ovata is the plant for seduction. It's a native of South Africa where it grows in dry riverbeds. The roots need to be kept moist, so it's best kept in a pot. Give it winter protection, but at the height of summer, put it on the patio table, and in the evening, it will seduce you with its heady, honey-rich perfume. There's a great colour combination here in the reliable and long-flowering Nymphophia Jenny Bloom. Its intensely hot orange tips burn away to a soft coral and looks terrific against a purple-leafed canna.
Some gardeners are nervous using tender perennials, but for roughly the price of a pelargonium, why not try using this salvia discolour? It'll give a really modern look in a hanging basket.
The silvery leaves are the perfect foil to its almost jet-black, delicate flowers. It needs well-drained soil and plenty of sun. Why not give it a go? This is not a glamour queen as far as flowers go, but a Ringium silver ghost with serrated and white veined leaves will contrast with a wide variety of plants. Perfectly hardy and a self-seeder, it's great value for money.
At shows like this, you're not really meant to touch the plants, but this one's irresistible.
With its vertical variegated leaves, Calamaglostis overdam produces a plume of purple flower heads which fade into these delicate, soft pink seed heads. Don't cut them off, it will add form to your winter garden.
The duckweed in my garden pond seems to run all summer, but I've found that just the ticket for getting rid of it is one of these, a flat net on the end of a telescopic arm. You can buy it at your local garden centre or water garden centre, and what fish don't eat, this will shift. You can dump it on the side of the pond. And it's a good time of year, this, you know, to have a pond prowl. This is one of my favourite poolside plants. It's a candelabra primula called the Harlow Carr hybrids from the Northern Horticultural Society's gardens at Harrogate. Beautiful mixture of pinks and purples and orange candelabras, and then below them seedlings. Now this is real plunder, because what I can do is leave a few to carry on this plantation, but also extend them to the other side of the pond. I'm choosing those that are right under the canopy, where the competition for light is fiercest, and take them out with as much soil around their roots as possible to give them every chance of surviving. You know, it doesn't matter how many times I do this and how many years I've been gardening, it still thrills the pants off me to get lots more plants from a few I put in last year. Candelabra primulas like to grow just above the waterline, but where there's still plenty of moisture in the soil. And this area here, this little bank, is perfect for them. Just prise the mud away with your trowel and then ease the plant in, keeping that soil around its roots, and push back the flap of mud. There's no reason why you shouldn't plant a little clump every now and again of 2 or 3 plants, firming them in. And that way, that bare patch of bank, which wasn't much fun to look at, will next year hopefully look a bit more like that one over there. Just earthing up my taters. Pippa Greenwood's been pretty busy in her kitchen garden too. As well as controlling pests and diseases, she's spicing up her vegetables with a few herbs.
A few of my favourite fresh herbs should ensure that any meal that I make with my organic vegetables has got that extra bit of zing and tastes especially good. Now I've decided to grow my herbs in a container, largely because the soil here is rather on the heavy side, and that's something a lot of herbs hate. And also because if your herbs are in a container, you can position it conveniently outside the door, and that means you don't have to go traipsing up to the back end of the garden in the middle of the night when you're trying to cook your meals. Now the first thing you want is a container with fairly good drainage holes at the bottom, and then it's in with some crocks or pebbles, and that will make sure that the drainage is better still. Now when it comes to choosing a compost, what I've got here is a mixture of John Innes No. 2, so that's a soil-based compost, a multi-purpose or soil-free compost, and plenty of grit. And that will hopefully give me the ideal combination of good drainage but adequate moisture retention. And that should ensure that the herbs are really happy. There's a fantastic array of herbs easily available now, and I've even managed to get hold of some which are organically reared, so that's perfect for me. Now choosing them shouldn't be difficult, but do bear in mind if you want things like rosemary and bay, which are really useful, they probably are better off in their own individual containers because they've got great aspirations to be a large tree. Some, like fennel, look sweet and innocent and are certainly very attractive, but always check the label because actually this has got potential to grow to a height of 5 foot or more. With things like thymes, they can look really rather boring like this, plain green, but if you look carefully you'll find lots of variegated or plain golden leaf forms and even some which are lovely and woolly. Similarly with sage, again, okay, but rather boring to look at. But bear in mind that there are lovely purple or variegated leaf forms as well, and they're much more attractive. The real choice, though, is down to what you know you're going to eat and enjoy using in the kitchen. So don't just follow what I'm doing, choose what you yourself want. I'm starting with a purple leaf sage in the centre, gorgeous variegated thyme, a woolly leaf thyme to cascade over the edges, some garlic chives which have white flowers and a hint of garlic to the flavour, a variegated mint and some parsley. And then just use the last of the compost, fill in the gaps in between the plants, getting some compost between each of the root balls and the edge of the pot. Level it off and then simply dress the surface with some grit. That does 2 things. It helps to keep weeds from colonising the compost surface. Secondly, it will also prevent too much moisture from accumulating around the crowns of the herbs, and that'll make them last longer, particularly over the winter months. Now, this should not only look good and taste good, but better still, most herbs are resistant to slug damage, and that's something I could really do with. The combination of the mild winter and the wet weather means that the slugs everywhere are having a real party, and in my garden they seem to be having a 5-star meal all at my expense. Now that means that a lot of the crops, the peas in particular, are really badly damaged, so better late than never, I'm going to do something about it. I don't use slug pellets, and obviously in an organic garden they're totally out of the question. One of the things you could consider using is this. It's cocoa shell mulch. For some reason, I don't know why, slugs and snails won't crawl over it, so that's a good way of deterring them. You could also have a go with one of the repellent products. This is something new. It's based on an extract of yucca, and you spray it around the plants, and allegedly, again, slugs and snails won't crawl over it. Or if plants in pots and containers being attacked by slugs and snails are your problem, you could try this. It's a self-adhesive copper tape. It naturally produces an electrical charge, so again, they simply won't crawl over it. But because I've got a relatively large area to work with, I'm going to use this, the biological control. What you buy are literally millions of nematodes, microscopic worms, in a clay suspension, and you mix those in according to the instructions. That's where the trouble starts as far as I'm concerned, because it's rather like primary school maths lessons, but worse. That gives you a concentrated or stock solution. You can then measure that into your watering can, again according to the instructions. You need a watering can with a coarse rose on it, and then stir it thoroughly so that the nematodes are evenly distributed, and then simply drench the soil with it. Now the soil does need to be really moist when you apply the nematodes, and ideally you apply it early in the evening, again so it's cool and moist. The wonderful thing about this is it works below ground, so it's fantastic for controlling those irritating keel slugs that love to munch tunnels into your potatoes and other root crops. The other real benefit is that it only kills slugs, nothing else, so beneficial or harmless creatures in the garden are left untouched. Now, in a couple of weeks, I'll be back getting on with more work in my kitchen garden, including starting my composting.
There really is great satisfaction to be gained from growing your own food crops. And in the case of gooseberries, they're so easy to grow that anybody should have a crack with a few bushes. And look what you get for your trouble. And with gooseberries and red and white currants like these, the secret of getting a good crop lies in the pruning. And now is the time, as they say, to do your summer pruning. You're trying to produce an open goblet-shaped bush for good air circulation and light. So take out that middle shoot that's coming right up the centre. As you pull it out, you'll see the light appearing in the bush, and what you will also see is the fruits on 1-year-old wood, not on this new stuff here. And what you're after producing is lots of 1-year-old spurs, and the way to do that is to cut back the side shoots by about half. Make all your cuts just above a bud. The main shoot of each of these surrounding branches is left intact. It's only the side shoots that you're shortening. That way you've still got the goblet shape. Next year, all those little side shoots will produce fruits and you'll have a cracking crop. Of course, you need to do no pruning at all on one soft fruit, and that's the strawberry. And you can buy young virus-free plants like this at your local garden centre or nursery now for about £1.50 a piece. This is a variety called Evita, and I'm planting it in a large half terracotta pot. Put crocks in the base to cover the hole, and then feed in a mixture of Johniness No. 2 potting compost and a soilless compost. Put it over the crocks in the bottom until it's about half full, and then, having watered the plant in its pot so its root ball sticks well together, ease it out and then space them out evenly around the edge of the pot. There's enough room in here for these plants to develop and fruit quite well. And then you can feed in among them with the compost. A lot of people fill pots far too full. They forget about watering. When you've finished and tap the sides, there should be a clear inch of rim to allow for watering. Now these can be stood straight outside and they can stay outdoors right the way through until next year, when you will have plants like this in full flower to fruit in a week or two's time. But if you want to put them in a polythene tunnel, which is unheated, this is how much more advanced they'll be. This is exactly what I did with these plants last year. They've been in a polytunnel and they're that much further on. In a few days' time, I shall smother them in sugar and cream and enjoy a very tasty bite. That's it for this week. Ta-da!